I've waited my entire life to shoot a Boone and Crockett deer, and never in my wildest dreams did I ever believe that I'd shoot 2 in 1 year. Yeah. You know, we talk all the time about things that help us as hunters and strategies and tools and gear. And I think one thing that's really overlooked is simply relationships. Building relationships is such a huge part of hunting, not only from a camaraderie standpoint, but also finding big deer and opportunities that you may have to hunt big deer. I've been fortunate enough over the years to build lots of relationships, both in the hunting industry, with friends, camera guys, people I lease with. And this year, relationships is a big part of, my success. If you saw the hunt breakdown for Sticker 10, you'll see those relationships came in a form of hunting with other people on a property that I lease here in Minnesota. This hunt is a little different. The team over there at Love the Grind, they were headed down to Iowa for the shotgun season and invited me down there to hunt with them, and good friends Caleb and Corbin Millard, who I have hunted with in the past, spent a lot of time around, and all of us now have become really good friends. So this year, the Iowa shotgun season, the first season, I was gonna be headed down there with those guys and hunt with the muzzleloader. As the season approached, there was one specific buck that those guys down there in Iowa were sharing lots of pictures of. He was a giant frame deer, 6x6 frame. He had some inline tines and some extras, but just a special deer. This was a deer that showed up just this year, so he was a new buck on this farm, just one that definitely stood out. As the season progressed, there were actually quite a few hunters that saw this deer and had encounters with him. They were getting lots of revealed photos and videos of this buck, and had some different hunters try and go after this deer and had some really close encounters, but just never were able to seal that deal. So the first Iowa shotgun season opens December 2nd, so that first week of December. Now, towards the later weeks of November, Corbin, he's sending a bunch of pictures, and this deer is all over the place. And I think it's kind of that tail end of the rut. He's searching for those last does that are coming in, and he's everywhere. In the morning, midday, in the evening. I mean, this deer is covering some ground, and he's showing himself a lot during those daylight hours. Now, this farm is a big farm, but it doesn't have a lot of timber on it at all. It's mainly CRP, kind of tall grass. It's got 3 draws that kind of run east-west. It's got these creek bottoms that kind of run through this CRP. Up to the west side of the farm, there's standing food. There's a big food plot up there, standing soybeans. And then down to the south end, again, CRP, some creek bottoms, and then big timber to the south of that farm. So there's a lot of cover on this farm, not a ton of food, and not a ton of timber either. The strategy in the weeks leading up to this hunt, it was gonna be, okay, we're gonna hunt the north side of this farm, in that CRP, kind of leading up to that standing food, the food source. And again, that deer has been doing that, showing himself on the reveal cameras a lot in this area. Well, lo and behold, probably 3 or 4 days before I got down there, the deer started showing up less and less, and it was like he almost vanished on the north side of this property. Corbin said, man, we gotta look somewhere else. Like, he has obviously changed his pattern. He's probably moving back into a lot of that cover. The rut is now tailing off. So let's move some cameras down to the south end of the farm, see if we can get some pictures of him down there. Well, sure enough, moved some reveals down to the south end of the farm. Guess who shows up? That big deer, and he had changed his pattern, moved into that heavier cover down on the south end of the farm into that CRP, using these creek bottoms as travel corridors, and I'm sure betting more on that heavy timber to the south side of the property.
I'm excited to introduce a brand new Deer Society video series called The Art of Deer Hunting. Now, within this series, we have categories such as the art of calling, the art of food plots, the art of scent control, We're gonna detail and break down all things in these categories plus more, from trail cameras, stands, scrapes, all things related to successful deer hunting is what this series is all about. This series is a culmination of all the information we've received internally from some of the best deer hunters across the country and the methods they've used to successfully harvest mature whitetails year after year. This is called The Art of Deer Hunting on the Deer Society YouTube channel.
So around this farm, there's quite a bit of hunting pressures. There's hunters to the northwest, some hunters to the south. So this farm gets a lot of pressure around it. The nice thing is that even though it doesn't have a lot of timber on it, this tall grass and the way that these creek bottoms run through it and these ditches that run kind of east-west and all come together, it provides a lot of cover for the deer still. So like low pressure on this farm, I think this deer, this big buck, and a lot of deer are staying on this property and feel safe here. So this deer, he moves to the south end of the farm. Maybe that's because he's getting some of that pressure from the neighbors to the northwest. But now that this deer is showing himself more down on the south end of the farm, the strategy needs to change. So this south side, all CRP. And you can see for a long ways, but you need to get elevated. So if you come off the road, not very far, there's kind of an elevation change or a terrain change where you go probably 100 yards into that CRP field. There's an elevated platform, and on top of that platform is a redneck soft-sided blind. We can come right off the road, slip in, pop right over the hill and into the blind without really disturbing anything. You can watch these creek bottoms and really get an understanding of how the deer are using it and see a long ways.
It is December 2nd. And it is a beautiful morning. We got snow here last night. I've seen a lot of deer move around so far. We're gonna sit this out for a little bit here this morning and then take a break for the day. Come back in with a new game plan.
So opening morning of gun season, anticipation always high. Now I got Connor with me in the blind, he's filming me. Corbin's also there, he's on the north side of the farm. And you know, it's just this group atmosphere. I love bow hunting, that's my passion. Like I love being intimate with these animals and being up close and personal. But there's always something nostalgic about getting a gun in your hands and hunting with a group of people and being out there on the opening day. We're seeing lots of deer and they're just working, using these creek bottoms to work along this CRP field. So they're working, a lot of them are working from north to south, headed back into that big timber to bed, but they're really just working all through this CRP, and it's cool because you can tell that they're just unbothered. They feel safe with all the cover around them. Opening day kind of comes and goes. We grab some lunch midday, hop right back in that same blind, and see a lot of deer that evening too, but no big guy. You know, the hopes are still high for the rest of the hunt. Even though we didn't see them opening night, we saw a ton of deer activity, and I felt like as long as we have a good wind, we can keep getting in and out of here undetected, that eventually with how much we could see and all the other deer just feeling safe in this CRP, we were gonna have a shot eventually, if we put our time in, at this big buck. So day two, we jump back in the same blind and we had a great sit in the morning. Saw a bunch of deer again right away as it gets light. We had a really good looking buck that was pushing some does. We could see him coming from a long ways away and he ends up pushing them right kind of up under us, underneath the blind. So again, just lots of activity, lots of deer moving around, and the hopes are still high. So heading back out for the evening sit, the weather had changed a little bit. So we went from cloudy to sunny. The temperature was mild. It wasn't super cold. It was more comfortable out. I'm always a fan of hunting that first sunny day after a bunch of days of rain or a bunch of days of just having cloudy weather. So I feel like it gets the deer on their feet, pressure's kind of rising, and I've always had better luck seeing big deer movement on sunny days versus cloudy days.
Always been a little superstitious, even as a kid. Superstition that I have, that it's an arrow or the bullet, or in this case, the primer. So I just give it a little love. A little love, a little luck.
So for the afternoon, we're not in the blind very long, and we start seeing deer activity. Not only do we start seeing some does, like bucks are on their feet. We see 2 or 3 different bucks, a few really good looking bucks. We're relying on our binoculars here a lot in our optics because, the CRP grass is tall. Sometimes you're just catching deer, parts of them moving through here. That's why they feel so comfortable. We're having a really good sit, seeing some really nice bucks, but just not the one. As the night progresses, we're about an hour before dark. We catch some deer moving behind us, so we kind of are spun around in the blind. I think there's a pretty good buck in this group. Lo and behold, it ends up not being our deer, and those deer kind of filter off into the woods to our east. We start getting situated back in the blind, and we're getting turned back around, and all of a sudden Connor says, there he is, and he spots the big deer coming from our southwest, right along the creek bottom.
It's him. It's him. It's him. He's right. He's coming right around. I'm sure it's him. He's right down there. Go. 20 yards from the tree line. Straight out. Straight line. Like that. He's not going. $78. Connor. Jeez. He is a giant. What? I don't even know. I couldn't hold the rangefinder. He came out of nowhere. We were looking this way, and all of a sudden Connor's like, there he is, that's him. And he is a giant.
Bryan.
Yeah. Are you kidding me right now? Let's go! Are you kidding me right now? Look at that deer, guys. I don't even care. Come in here, everybody. I don't care who it is. Come here. Let's go. Come on. All right, Jeff, where you at?
Hey, shut up, buddy. I just want to get out.
Look at the mass on that deer. He is a freaking giant. He's perfect. I can't even explain to you what I'm feeling right now. This is a culmination of so many things that I am fortunate to be a part of. Like I don't know what I did to deserve this, but unbelievable. Corbin, Caleb, Jeff, everybody that is on all of your teams, you guys are amazing. I can't thank you enough. Like I was fortunate enough to be there and pull the trigger with a little luck. This is what hunting dreams are made of. I don't even know what to say. The game plan was mint. Like, we didn't sit food, we sat CRP field where we could see a bunch, and look at this. I'm speechless, absolutely freaking speechless. Like, I was fortunate enough to shoot my target buck in Minnesota this year, and it doesn't even compare. This is a dream come true. No dream in my mind did I ever think that this would be a reality. I don't know what else to do but hugs. Connor, Jonah, John, thank you guys. Like, rocked it. Rip. Hammer. Thank you, Jeff.
Absolutely. Congrats, bud. Well deserved. Nice job,
for everything. Get in there. Yeah, touch him, hold him. That is
so big, dude. Oh my God.
Look at that. I don't even, I'm shocked. The story behind this deer, just sitting there in the blind, I'm thinking, like, if you could understand everything about this deer, like his whole life, I don't know how old this deer is. If you could understand everything about him and what he did that whole lifespan, and even just this year, the hunters that he dodged and how much history and how much cool stuff is behind that. You sit behind a deer like this and it humbles you. We chase him and we're so passionate about him, but to just appreciate that whole thing, like, did they think about us as much as we think about them? I think there's a couple keys to this hunt that are really important, and the first one being intel. Running cameras, understanding that real-time data of what this deer was doing, and when he made a move, being able to adjust those cameras, understand and reanalyze what he was doing and make a move. So moving that blind into place after we found where the deer had switched his pattern to, I mean, that was critical. Just having that real-time intel and real-time data was huge in the upfront and overall strategy. And secondly, relationships. You know, forming those friendships, forming those relationships with landowners or people or fellow hunters. You know, those things, as much as you can enjoy them as a hunter, sometimes those leading to opportunities. And I'm thankful for the opportunity, the relationships, and all the friendships that this hunt has brought me. And on top of the intel was just this low pressure approach to the entire farm. You know, obviously they had hunted it some before I had got there, but it was a low pressure approach, and understanding how the farm lays out, giving these deer their space, and understanding how they use the cover and making them feel comfortable. You know, Corbin and Caleb and those guys down in Iowa, like, they did a phenomenal job of understanding that farm, understanding where the pressure was, leaving those deer alone to feel comfortable in those safe spots, in that big CRP, in those creek bottoms. You could tell just by sitting there that those deer were super comfortable living there and not wanting to leave, especially with the surrounding pressure.
Thanks for watching this Deer Society Hunt Breakdown. Subscribe to the channel for more great educational content to help you become a better hunter, from podcasts to the Art of Deer Hunting series, hunt breakdowns, tips, tactics, and a whole lot more. The Deer Society is all about deer hunting education.